How's it going, everybody? This is 143.2 The Foot. I'm your host, Brad Bibbles, and this is Camp Hilo After Dark with Camp Master Hilo himself. Camp Master Hilo, welcome back.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much for having me, Brad.
Hey, of course. I have to say, that was a fantastic episode. Let's talk about it. Bingo. What was the inspiration?
Yeah, so the inspiration for this one, and you'll see the connection next week when we talk about the week to come, but the inspiration for this one was my cat. My cat, of course, being named Bingo. I thought it would be interesting to stage a challenge around that, and so ultimately we came up with a way, we came up with a bunch of ideas for spots on a bingo card, and we thought, well, what would it look like if we forced our campers to go on like a scavenger hunt, right? We just came up with a bunch of absurd ideas. We were throwing it around in the production tent, and randomized them, slapped them on cards, and we came up with the challenge of to see which team could, of these weird items, mark off the most spots and get the most bingos. But as our campers are persistent, it ultimately became a challenge of who could finish all 5 bingo cards the fastest.
Yeah, it's almost as though you're reading my cue cards, because that was the question that I was going to ask. Did you expect them to? You expect them to finish so quickly, or to almost finish so quickly?
Yeah. So when we started off, originally we just gave them 3 bingo cards. So I mean, to answer your question, no, we had no clue. Originally we planned for 5, and then I thought that might be too much, so we scaled it back to 3. And then, by, I think, the end of, 24 hours, 36 hours, they were, 80% done. They were really close to getting done with all of the bingo cards. So I very quickly turned around and, pulled the other 2 out from our archives and said, well, hey, surprise, we're going to give you 2 more. And we stopped on 5, and I think 5 was a good number. It made the challenge last a good while it didn't wear too many people out, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as they say, the possibility of death is a pretty strong motivating factor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that was rule number 1 in the journalism world.
I don't know much about journals. I'll be honest, Brad.
Well, hey, apparently I don't either, according to my editors. Looking at, thinking back through the episode, there were some pretty interesting submissions for bingo cards, and what were the tough calls that you had to make?
Yeah, a couple tough calls. So we had the Foolish Ferrets, Witless Wolves. Some of them we found were just impossible. One of them was to find Shaquille O'Neal, and we knew that they wouldn't be able to find the actual man, the myth, the legend himself. But in terms of tough calls we had to make, both of the teams, funnily enough, they submitted Shaq gummies as one of their submissions for the Shaquille O'Neal tile. That was an interesting one that we had to alter the rules a little bit for. We tried to promote as much lateral thinking as possible, so as long as it made sense and was interesting, we tried to accept it. Another one I could think of was on the ferrets. One of the card slots was for a toasty campfire, and a campfire not a campfire, and a camper made toast and literally put it on the fire itself, on just bunches of woods and a little fire pit, So we have to give points for creativity, right? So that certainly was one of them as well. Some other interesting or close calls. One of them we had pairs, so it was one of the tiles was the fourth edition of a book, and the other one
Hmm.
was the fifth edition of that same book. So early on, you saw people playing it safe, where if they could find one of them, they would very quickly get one of the tiles marked off. But knowing that it was a race to basically complete everything, we really had people scouring for two copies of a book in different editions or like different volumes, right?
Hmm.
One team ended up using some textbooks. The others ended up using like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Fourth edition, fifth edition,
Hmm.
which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, what were did you have to say no? And who did you have to say no to? What was just a bridge too far?
Yeah, there were. Let me think. We said no only to a couple where we really knew they could find the right answer. One of them that came to mind, and this is one of like the harder submissions for the wolves. Was we were very particular about what we would accept for a stray cat. Um, and funnily enough, it took them a very long time uh, to. Neither team really could find a stray cat. That was one of the hardest. I thought that would be a challenge that you could get knocked out in like an hour or two. But this is one that really stumped them for a while. I remember, I believe it was the ferret submitted the photo of like a cat plush on top of a dumpster. Had to say no to that.
Hmm.
And there was something very similar from the wolves as well. But we were very strict. We were adamant about I want to see a real life genuine cat, right? Otherwise, the challenge, where it gets its namesake would be slightly off, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. When the people want to see something, you have to show the people what they want to see.
Absolutely.
It's rule number two of journalism.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
One other one I thought was pretty interesting. Um, I asked them to give me something that I couldn't comprehend. One team sent me a photo of a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Had no clue what I was looking at, to be quite frank.
Okay,
And the other team, the Ferrets, had a photo of a seal in Portuguese. Had no clue what I was looking at.
that'll do it.
Don't speak Portuguese, Brad. Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
but
I've been there. My second publisher only spoke Portuguese, and that relationship did not last that long.
relationship on or off the court, Brad?
The game's the game.
Um, but yeah, there were some really interesting ones altogether. Another pair that I loved. This was from the Foolish Ferrets, and um, this was overall one of my favorites. Was we like to, I like to have like a running theme throughout a couple, not only like just the challenges, but also within the challenges themselves. So I had a pair of spots that were like find a weapon a giant would use to fight a fairy, and then one that was find a weapon a fairy would use to fight a giant, right? So for the fairy weapon, a lot of people would, we had a few pictures of like pins or small metal daggers, needles, things like that, right? Perfect, makes sense. It's like a sword in the hands of a fairy. But then I thought this one was really awesome. For the weapon a giant would use to fight a fairy, out of nowhere, Camper Lucas on the Foolish Ferrets manifested this giant fly swatter, and like it's like a pool skimming net or something. I mean, it's like this massive
Yeah,
wood handle, and at the end it's just like a mesh net, exactly the type of material you would expect like a fly swatter to be made out of, right? And you're looking at the photo of him holding it, right? I mean, it's larger than him. It is over
yeah. I
six
have to say,
feet
I thought
tall.
that you were going to point me. I thought that you were going to point me to the picture of Raid where my mind went to.
the
That was a giant bug in a berry, just bug spray.
the bug spray. I don't even remember what that was. Oh, that was a yellow logo. A yellow logo.
Uh-huh.
But no. I mean, the bug spray. Maybe the can would have been a little too small in the hands of a giant, but it would make sense, right? If it was a larger can.
Creativity is what this game is about.
Absolutely.
But creativity and perseverance isn't always enough. And correct me if I'm wrong, but for all of Lucas's creativity, that wasn't enough to push him over the finish line.
Lucas, yeah. So it was the case that Lucas's team was the one to fall a little short of the finish line this week. Yeah. So the Foolish Ferrets, I loved so many of their submissions, and I think they did an absolute killer job. But ultimately, it came down to 2 in the end that they had missed. It was a non-American McDonald's, which I thought was going to be easier for them. They had 2 non-American players, right? A Canadian and a Brazilian. They had a Brazilian players, and they still couldn't find a McDonald's. And then the other one was a waving inflatable tube dude, one you might see outside of a car dealership. But yeah, in the final hours, it was Lucas's team, the Foolish Ferrets, who could not get over the finish line in the end, and they moved to elimination this week. And it was also a shocker, the elimination, because we weren't sure.
Don't leave us hanging.
Yeah, we weren't sure who they were going to vote out, but ultimately, one of the more active participants and a competitor who I've mentioned on the pod previously, Parker of the Foolish Ferrets, actually ended up stepping away, which was a little bit of a shock. Parker had set up a lot of alliances and was working the social game really well. I was excited to see how that dynamic was going to continue into future weeks and future challenges. But ultimately, Parker found that the hustle and bustle was a little too much, right, and stepped away from the challenge. So
this our understanding of this game from the past 2 seasons is that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes, yeah.
It's to some degree, it's about getting through the individual challenges, and then to another degree entirely, it's about getting through the slog. And some people just aren't cut out for it.
Yeah, and there's some challengers who or some campers who take that they build that into their strategy, right? Knowing that I don't have to be the best every week to do well in this game, right? I just have to be there when it matters, and then once the merge happens, really kind of kick it into high gear and start doing better on the individual performance challenges. So yeah, a lot of campers think they can do well by really pushing it in the early weeks, and then but then by the time they get burnt out into some of the later challenges, it's a little too late, right? There's less people to vote out, so when there's fewer people to vote and you're burnt out, you're not participating as much, it's time to go, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Camp Hilo, I think we're going to leave it there. Next week, when there is one less viewer camper to vote off, we'll talk through the events of this critically acclaimed show once more.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much, Brad.
With that, thank you.
That dookie,